Hello, I'm Jessie Nay.
I'm Austin Anderson.
I'm Ezekiel Carson.
I'm Dominica Cipriani.
I'm Selena Luna.
And I'm Ashley Schutte.
And today we'll be talking about family homelessness in Washington, D.C. In 2017, in Washington, D.C., 6% of students began their school year without a safe and stable home to return to after the final bell of the day. Being part of homeless families affects children, especially as growing up without a stable household where you feel genuinely safe can be emotionally traumatic. Their education also suffers due to long and dangerous commutes to school. Half of children who are homeless are held back a grade in school, and 22% of homeless children are held back for multiple grades. Children who are homeless are also 2 times as likely to have learning disabilities and 3 times as likely to have emotional disturbances. Statistically, homeless children are less likely to graduate high school. This has implications for their success in the future. In fact, the leading risk factor for homelessness in adulthood is the lack of GED. This is one of the ways in which the cycle of homelessness is perpetuated. This issue does not just affect the individual person, but rather the community they live in as a whole. People who are homeless are more likely to be victims of crime and tend to suffer more health problems as a result of exposure to the elements, including health issues that could easily spread to the surrounding communities. Children who are homeless have twice as many ear infections, have 5 times the amount of gastrointestinal problems, and are 4 times more likely to develop asthma. These children are also sick 4 times as often as other children. In addition to this, homelessness can lower property value in the community, and when tourism picks back up, it may drive off tourists, which can become an issue in cities that rely on tourism. Homelessness of families with young children is an issue that needs to be solved as soon as possible. Although there are many individual children that are homeless, we will be focusing on children and families that are homeless. These children can offer so much to their communities in the future, and it would be a tragic loss for them to remain struggling and homeless their entire lives.
In the mid-1900s, the typical homeless person was a white middle-aged man. However, today, one-third of those that are homeless are families with young children. On average, 2.5 million children experience homelessness each year, and to put that in perspective, that's 1 out of every elementary school class in the United States. People that are homeless are often exposed to more toxins. They're likely to get sick much more often than their counterparts who have homes to return to. They're often exposed to lead poisoning, have asthma, and commonly get ear infections. They can also get many other diseases and sicknesses that could spread to the surrounding community. Children who are homeless often have learning disabilities and emotional disabilities. Studies have found that 50% of homeless children experience delayed development and struggle in school. Those that are homeless also have a higher dropout rate for high school. This can be for many reasons, including their learning disabilities. It can be hard for them to get to school, or they can have to go through dangerous roads to get to school on time. In times unlike these, when we don't have a virus going around, tourism can also suffer. It can also hurt the economy of those cities that are especially dependent on tourism.
The first figure shows the difference between each state's average number of the homeless families each night. DC, with 95, has 59 more homeless families each night than the second highest in New York at 35.9, and is about 87 families higher than the national average. The next figure shows specific facts about DC, showing higher overall poverty rates and levels of homelessness. Because of these statistics, we chose to start our solution in DC and expand our program from there.
The first existing solution we researched is called St. John's Program for Real Change. St. John's aims to break the cycle of homelessness through a 12 to 18-month rehabilitation program located in Sacramento, California. This solution was created by St. John's Lutheran Church in 1985 when they took in 20 women and children who were sleeping on the front steps. They became an official nonprofit in 1988. In 2004, they introduced most of the supplementary programs that they now offer, such as counseling. Though St. John's is not solving the homeless crisis by lowering housing costs or raising salaries, they attempt to help those impacted by these issues, specifically single mothers with children. Participants are not required to pay rent, but they must commit to the long-term intensive program, which involves cooperating with all the services offered and doing what is required by the program. In addition to providing shelter and food, families receive mental health therapy, drug and alcohol counseling, parenting education, budgeting classes, healthy relationship training, and employment training. St. John's tries to end homelessness by providing families with the resources to become self-sustainable. This solution has significantly reduced the problem in Sacramento, but not in the rest of the U.S. St. John's seems to be effective. However, it is a very intensive program that requires a lot of time and money, so it is difficult to implement it in other places and receive proper funding to expand it. In addition to this, programs similar to St. John's exist in virtually every major city in the U.S., making it hard to implement in cities where homelessness programs already exist. So far, 30,000 people have successfully completed the St. John's program. Though this program is clearly helping many, we believe that a problem with this existing solution is the religious affiliation of the name. Based on our research, it does not seem as though you need to adhere to a certain religion in order to benefit from this program. However, the religious connotation of the name may deter certain groups from seeking out their help. Overall, this program had many excellent features that served as an inspiration for our own solution to the homelessness crisis.
The second existing solution we looked at was through an organization located in Washington, D.C. called Coalition for the Homeless. They have a program called the 50th Street Family Program, which aims to provide temporary shelter for homeless families that have children. Unlike many other programs that are dedicated to helping homeless families, this one does not have to be headed by single mothers in order for them to be implemented into the program. Residents in the program live in a 12-unit apartment building where all the costs, like rent and utilities, are covered by the coalition, but the families that provide their own food and clothing. This 12-unit apartment building is a great idea, but it does provide an issue because the residents are able to stay there for a non-stated amount of time. There's not enough turnover. There's not a heavy turnover rate of people coming in and coming and going. So the homeless crisis is still an issue in DC. In order to be a part of the program, they have to get a referral from the Virginia Williams Family Resource Center, which is a social service organization located in Washington, D.C. This referral process is also another problem of the program, because in order to get a referral, you have to get an appointment, and people might not be able to make those appointments if it is far away and they cannot get transportation, or if they cannot have childcare. While in the program, people receive supportive services, and this includes case management, housing assistance, food and clothing referrals, tutoring for some students, a job placement assistant, and abuse and education support. Another step of the program is you have to complete a background check, and this was an issue that we found because it does not state how extensive the background check or nor what the cutoff factor is, so it's unclear if someone who commits a petty crime like shoplifting will be limited from being in the program, which can hurt the amount of families that can stay in the program. Finally, the overall problem we saw was with the website. This might not seem like it's a big idea or a big issue because it's just a website, but it was unclear information and lacking general information in total. It was unclear the number of people that the program served, so it's hard to see how well the program is working. And people who are trying to join or help others join may be confused about what to do with the information on the website. And also for people who want to donate or partner with the organization, they might be deterred from doing so because they don't understand what their money is actually going towards.
Finally, moving on to the applied innovation section, we will be fixing the issue of homelessness in DC, more specifically chronic homelessness. Before I go in depth too much, I would just like to state that all this information is based on assumptions on research we made prior to March and the outbreak of COVID-19. This plan will come in the form of a template for change that will include communication resources and the necessities that homeless programs can implement into their current organization to further benefit their families. It will be aimed at solving the issues of chronic homelessness, where someone is constantly bouncing back and forth from independent to back being homeless. As for our program, it will target the issues that are out of our residents' control and can cause them to keep bouncing back into homelessness. Such issues include struggling to balance work and childcare, possible abusive relationships, unable to find stable jobs or even recent job loss, and lack of knowledge of where to find help. To solve these issues, our program will be multifaceted with several steps that will include free tutoring for the children of the family, workforce preparation and job placement for both parents and young adults, domestic abuse consultation, and overall reworking the program's online presence if necessary. This program will also be flexible with what resources are required to be used by the residents and what are not. For example, if a mother of 3 needs help becoming independent again, but has no experience with abusive relationships, but rather is just struggling to find a stable job, then she will not be required to partake in our domestic abuse consultation. She will just need to work with our job placement program. Overall, the overarching goal is to create an easy to install template of change that the organizations can basically copy and paste into their system to increase the effectiveness of families becoming independent again. To briefly touch on why we chose the Coalition for the Homeless as an issue, across the nation, as we stated before, homelessness is at its highest in the DC area on average. Our hope here being, after a few years, if the program shows success, we can build credibility and could begin to incorporate our program into other organizations. As if we can make a positive impact in the state where the issue is at its peak, then we will build enough credibility so that other organizations may hope to reach out to us. Transitioning to our first step in our program, being tutoring, the first change we would hope to make would be to supply better tutoring for the Coalition for the Homeless. As Selena stated, they do have a little bit of a tutoring program installed, but it is not very effective. For the sake of time, I will be going more in depth with this step than the others to explain how we would go about funding or finding people to run this part of our plan, what kind of resources we would need, and how we would find the funds to pay for those resources. This is an issue. The issue of education with children who are homeless is a very big issue, as children's growth and maturity is a very important and very intertwined with their education, yet it is one of the biggest things that homeless children struggle with. Fire Steel is a network of YMCAs that operate in Washington with the goal of ending homelessness, and they conducted a study a while back that showed that half of children who are homeless are held back one grade and 22% are held back for multiple. Our program would be able to provide children with someone who is able to watch over their education while their parents are working on turning their own lives around through their individualized programs. In order for this step to work, we would need to find tutors for the children that would take place in an online format, as this would save the coalition money by avoiding the cost of transportation. Programs like Kumo and Presto Experts are examples of what kind of online tutors we could work with. Kumo offers reading and math assistance through personalized tutoring divided up into the age ranges of 3 to 5, 6 to 12, and 13 plus. For more advanced and older teens, Presto Experts specializes in more advanced computer programming and science courses. Their website even states that they have over 600 subjects available and a tutor for every need, which after looking at their website, I can definitely confirm. As far as technological resources go, the coalition already provides Wi-Fi in their buildings, so that would not be an issue. But when it comes to laptops, we would have to fundraise and find an efficient way to distribute them. In order to be able to afford the laptops, we could utilize a fundraiser that the coalition is already part of, called Stepping Out for the Homelessness. Each year, they have what they call a focus of which parts of their organizations they wish to improve upon that year. For example, last year, the focus was on fundraising for 2 different housing units and then just the overall 50th Street program. When we wish to purchase these laptops, we could use the statement of education for our children as our focus. And then once we could use that money that we would get from this fundraiser. Then once we purchase the laptops, we could distribute them to the children in the same way that public schools do today. They would check them out just like a library book, and then it's theirs to take with them for the extended period of time so that they can have access to their online tutors whenever they need. And then we would educate the workers in our buildings on what kind of technological knowledge they might need in order to fix little issues that might pop up in the laptops. Our next step that we would transition over to would be job searching, which is the next piece of our template. The plan here would take form of a class of seminars in the coalition that they could host and be focused on workforce culture and teaching the participants about the skills that they need to find stable jobs in the real world. Online programs like Michelin 20mm works to educate people on certain job markets they have interest in. And what makes Michelin 20mm truly significant is the fact that they even offer grants to support nonprofit organizations with new or existing programs that address our impact goals. That is a quote directly from Michelin 20mm's website. So we could contact them about possibly offering us a grant that could provide us with materials like textbooks that our residents could study from to learn more about the job market that they want. The final step to help our members would be to actually find a job and to contact local Goodwill or thrift stores and see if they have any proper work attire that our members could use or borrow for interviews and actual work. The next step is our domestic abuse program. This program would come in the form of consultations and group meetings where we help families who may be suffering at the hands of an abusive head of the household. To begin with, we will offer them shelter in our housing units, but then from there, we will begin to work with the members of the family in both online and face-to-face programs, whichever one is preferred by the resident. And we will offer emotional support, create a safety plan, and prepare them to leave such a relationship. And then we will even be able to inform them about what type of legal information and online support is out there to help them actually leave. Some websites that we could pair with, like the National Domestic Violence Hotline, even provides people that could come in as advocates and have either group meetings or one-on-one meetings with specific residents. And our final step, as Selena talked about earlier, would be addressing the issue of websites that do not provide specific information. We would overall provide more specific information on certain pages within the website, make it easier to apply to be part of the program, and create a more prominent social media presence to spread the word. While it is true that many homeless people may not have access to the technology of like social media, the hope here is to spread the word so more people just become aware of the coalition. If you click on the tab right here for the current website, this will take you to the coalition's website right now that has a couple issues that we would like to discuss. So if you go under the Programs tab and click on Family Services, it would take you to the page where you would think it would show stuff about information of like what life is like in the shelter for children, what kind of support they give the children and families, stuff like that. But all it talks about is just one of the buildings in specific and the fact that they have kitchens and they have to supply their own food. our issue here is we don't think that that is very helpful information. So if we go back over to our slide and click on our idea for our new website, we have a template of what our new website would look like. And talking about the issue of family services specifically, just as an example, we have an idea of how we would address it more specifically. So this is what our new website would look like. And if you scroll down a little bit, just right to it where it says family services on the first page, you can see we have it broken up into 3 different sections. Tutoring for our children, the housing units that we supply, and overall job market and placement. The important thing here is that we have it broken up into 3 separate parts, and it has a slide that talks about the living arrangements, a slide that talks about the job placement for the younger adults and just overall adults, and then tutoring for the children. We think this is a much better idea because it more specifically talks about like actual things that we provide for the residents rather than just talking about the building in general. So to jump back to our presentation and go to the last slide, overall, the goal of our solution is not to create our own homeless shelter, nor to completely change up a current organization, but rather to provide a template/package of information and procedures to give the Coalition for the Homeless the vision, contact information, and overall resources that they can provide to be the most efficient form of help that they can give the chronic homeless people of DC. This is a program that doesn't necessarily need to be followed to a T, but rather provides all sorts of resources to better the effect of the organization has on solving the issue of homelessness in people and families in the DC area.